Well, this is the Cool Cattlemen. I'm your host, Seth King. Um, I am excited to be here today with Brandon Volstad of Burlington, Wisconsin. Thanks, Brandon, for tuning in with us and sitting down with me tonight. Now, Brandon, you're out of Wisconsin. You are Cheesehead Highlands, which totally makes sense.
Yep.
I love that. So we're gonna be talking with Brandon a little bit tonight about recips and a little bit of embryo talk as well. But before we get into that, Brandon, um, will you kind of give us an idea just of kind of your background, how you got into cattle, how you found Highland cattle, and kind of the direction that you're moving in with your farm, Cheesehead Highlands?
Yeah. So, growing up, I was, I guess, what you would consider a city kid. Dad was a physical therapist, mom's a nurse practitioner, so not really, not really a rural background, but um, I was real good friends with uh one of the Larson boys from 40 Acres, and the one year, one of his brothers was going off to boot camp for the army. And Tucker had told me, hey, we're looking for just an extra hand to kind of help us out at a couple cattle shows in the fall, and you'll get 2 Fridays off of school back to back. And as soon as I heard that, I was in. Um, but it turned out, I went, I liked it. It was fun. I was like, oh, this is cool. I liked kind of the concepts of you take this animal and made it with this animal, try and make a superior animal. Um, and it was an interesting concept to me, and then learning more about um the role that raising cattle has like in the community. It piqued my interest, and it was something I wanted to try. And I started small. I bought just one heifer from Cobblestone Farms in East Troy here. um and then just kind of slowly grew from that one. I sold her first calf. I won a Cattlemen's Award through ACA to buy my next heifer, and yeah, from there I've just I'm up to 8 head now, and still slowly growing, but really trying to fine tune the quality and get rid of the lower quality animals I have and focus more on I guess what you would consider top of the line cattle.
Right. Yeah, weeding out the ones and trying to better your herd. That's tough to do in today's world, it seems like, but that's definitely
Yeah.
a good goal, quality over quantity for sure. I'm with you there. Um, well, and you said you won a an award that kind of helped you move in that direction. Was that as a junior, or was that, can you explain that a little bit to us?
Correct. Yeah. So I think I was 18 or 19 at the time, and I applied for, I believe it's called the ACA Junior Cattleman Award,
Okay.
and it was a $1,500 credit essentially towards a show heifer, and part of the stipulation was that you would do a little write up, provide pictures for the bagpipe, and it was featured in like the junior highlight section.
Hmm. That's cool. Yeah, I've heard a little bit about that in the past. I thought maybe it was the junior, scholarship type deal. Um, yeah, definitely interesting. What year would that have been? Not to age you, but how long ago was that?
Uh it would have been 2018, so
Okay.
6 years ago.
So prices were still like kind of decent. You could
They were
probably,
reasonable.
yeah,
Yeah,
you could get
yeah.
probably something
I
pretty decent for that.
Yeah, I ended up buying that heifer from the North Central sale, and I think she was like $3,200 or something, and was near the higher end of the heifer lot. So, and then now it's just with the, as high as the prices are now, it's just, it makes me kind of sit there and smile like, oh, I got in right at the right time.
Oh yeah. Yeah, 20 that's when we started too, 2018 and shoot, yeah, it's been something else. But hey, I think it's a good thing. So, well, again, Brandon,
Certainly.
thanks again for making time for us. Um, so let's get into, I guess, a little bit about well, we talked about this recently. We met up what 2 weeks ago, something like that. And Kimber and I
Yeah.
and you uh kind of just talked about recips because we don't have a lot of experience with them. Um, just embryo work in general. I mean, we have an AI program, as far as well as life cover, but we haven't dealt hardly at all with embryos or recips or anything like that. So, and I think there's a lot of people out there that maybe they don't have a bull on the farm. Maybe they just want to expand. Maybe they want to save some money and buy a recip and some embryos and kind of go that route. So, could you kind of explain just from the basics, like what's a recip, what to look for if that is the direction that somebody wants to move in.
Yeah. So I guess, I mean, even coming full circle just from our prior comment about the prices of Highlands in recent years, uh, it seems like the most effective route now is to go, you know, either buy a recip or rent a recip, put an embryo in, and get a calf instead of, paying eight, nine, $12,000 for a heifer.
Right.
Um, so my first endeavor with embryos was probably 4 or 5 years ago. I bought a few at the national sale. Um, at the time, all I had was registered purebred stock, so I didn't have anything necessarily to put them in. But I found a guy in Indiana who, um, part of his business plan with farming was, we'll lease out these cows, and on the first cycle, we'll try put your embryos in. If that doesn't take, then he turns his bull out and covers the remaining cows, and then he sells the rest off for beef, and then you go down 6 months later and pick up, your weaned calf. So in a situation like that, you're limited on, uh, your choice of recips, but you're going down it. I think at the time it was little under $2,000 to, rent that cow for the 15 months of, gestation, calving, getting the calf weaned, and um, so yeah, that was my first endeavor. I've done it, I've done that, gone that route again. Um, but I've also found that, uh, buying your own recips is a much more, I guess, controlling way of doing it. You can go out, you can look at the animals, you can make sure they're going to carry the traits you want. Um, so kind of what I'm looking for is my ideal recip is, a half dairy, half beef breed. That way they have the increased milk production, that the dairy provides, but then also they got the maternal instincts, um, and certainly like a little more rib capacity to them, for growing that calf inside of them. Um, but yeah, like I have one that's it's a half Dexter, half Highland cross, I think. I got her as a trade, so I'm not exactly sure what she's made of, but when I went to pick her up, I saw the calf she had just weaned off, and she weaned off, a pretty decent, I think, right around 550 pound calf at just 5 months. Um, so I got her. Um, but yeah, you want milk production, you want, the rib shape and capacity to grow that calf in them. You want to make sure they have, um, a good hip on them, so they're not going to have any complications when they're calving as well. Um, I did pick up another recip a few years ago from the Cowles. They do a little bit of crossbreeding, and they have this one just phenomenal. I think she's a Shorthorn Plus and Highland Cross, and she grows out these. I mean, just massive steers and market heifers. If you've ever seen them out in Denver or whatever, you probably know what I'm talking about. But I know that cow really is worth her weight in gold. So kind of one of my benefits of knowing them and knowing that cow, I was like, well, she'll make a good recip, and so I bought that heifer, and I'm expecting a calf out of her in February.
Hmm. So really, I mean, you're looking for a good bag, good milk production, a large enough animal to support the calf, and hopefully good uh, birthing qualities, hip distance, things of that nature. So really, so you're really not worrying about genetics. You're more so looking at just the actual structure of the animal to carry that calf and wean that calf.
Correct. And even even like back legs, pastern angles, I'm more willing to sacrifice and take a lower quality animal in that regard, just because in my mind I'm getting a recip. I'm not going to keep her for 15, 18, 20 years. I'm going to probably keep her 5, 6 years, get a few calves out of her, and then either send her off to butcher, or I will put an embryo in and sell it to somebody else who's looking for like a step up in their genetic program.
Okay, sure. So, do you do your own embryo work, or can you tell us, know, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I don't do my own. It's incredibly complicated compared to AI. I know they have like there's like schooling and classes through UW Extension that I took to learn how to do AI, and I've gotten pretty good at that. But embryo work it's a whole nother beast. I'm fortunate enough to have a really good facility just 15 minutes down the road from me. Um, but when you're doing, when you're flushing your own cattle, there's a couple different routes you can go. If you're going with conventional flushing, you have to go out and give, your animals. I think it's, I think it's one shot, it's one or two shots every day for 7 days, morning and night. It's a crazy amount. It comes out to like 18 or 21 shots
Hmm.
over the course of a week. Um, and then the other option is in vitro, which is what I did most recently. And that's just a series of, I want to say it's 4 shots. Um, 4 shots, you know, morning and night for 2 days. Um, but then, yeah, once you do the shots, at least in my case, you do the shots, you bring the animals in, and then they'll, run through their chute. They'll collect the embryos out, um, and get them ready. And I guess I should add too, with conventional, um, you would give them the shots, then you would, artificially inseminate them, and then a week after the insemination, you would go and they would flush the embryos out. Whereas with in vitro, you give them the shots, you take them to the facility, they pull the unfertilized eggs out, and then they will fertilize them there in their lab and then grow them for a week, and then they'll call you afterwards with the results and um how many were freezable and how many were grade 3, which are kind of they're unfreezable. They most of the time they don't survive freezing and thawing. So if you have a recip that was in heat 7 days ago, they'll be like, yeah, bring them in. We'll stick the fresh embryo in, and we'll see if it takes.
Okay. So, outside of the shots and the AI, you're taking them into a facility. You're taking the cow that's being flushed, and then also the recip into the facility, and the technicians, veterinarians, whoever you've got doing it, they're the ones who are actually doing the flushing and process of creating the embryo.
Correct. Yep. Like I said, it's a more complicated process than AI, and I have seen like advertisements on Facebook for there's like an embryo transfer school, I think in Tennessee somewhere that you can sign up for as like a week long class, kind of teaching you how to do it. Um, but like I said, I'm fortunate enough to have a really good facility just 15 minutes down the road for me, so I utilize them as much as I can.
So outside of someone that has their own laboratory, you should probably try to seek out a facility that's uh, already doing this type of work, it sounds like.
Certainly, yeah.
So, I mean, the facility you're using, is it just like, is that all they do? Is it a vet? I mean, what's that look like, that facility you've got?
Yeah, it's all I do is embryo work. It's called Sunshine Genetics. Being from Wisconsin, most of the embryo places up here are dealing, I would say 90% of the time with dairy. Um, and Sunshine Genetics, they do, I think their biggest business is like exporting uh American embryos worldwide. They do a lot of business with South America. They do a lot of business with Europe, where you got people that bring their cows in for 3, 4, 5 months, quarantine, get healthy, and will pass whatever tests are required to send our genetics into those other countries. And then yeah, they flush them, freeze them, and then they send them out wherever people are wanting them at.
Wow. What would be, somebody that has no idea? Like I actually have a buddy who I was recently talking to about flushing cattle, and he was like, "Yeah, well, he lives here in Illinois." And he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna have to end up going up to Wisconsin to, get this work done on our cattle." And I'm like, I just happen our vet that we use, he just happens to specialize in that type of work, and they're building a facility and all that. But what do you what do you tell somebody that, lives or maybe just got started in cattle or something, has no idea where to find a facility like that? I mean, you talk to your local vet or your local university, or I mean, what are some good ideas for people to find something like that?
Yeah, when people have asked, most of the people that I've talked to that are new and trying to get into it and want to experiment with it, they're up here in Wisconsin. So I always tell them, you know, go to so and so dairy down the road, ask them if they're using this practice. If they are, ask them where they're going to do it. Um, because these places that these large dairies use, they're more than capable of handling, your 5 Highlands or whatever that you want to bring in. Um, the few people I have talked to that are out of state, I'm like, yeah, ask your vet if there are any large dairies around you. Ask them. If you're near any, um, any beef cattle farm that kind of markets their cattle as show steers or show heifers, ask them because they're probably utilizing the technology as well.
Mhm. Yeah, that's good advice. That's not the first time I've heard that too. Just to go to your local, whoever else is raising cattle across the section from you, and just go talk to them and pick their brain. Which I think sometimes having Highlands, you just kind of feel like the odd one out, and at least that's how I feel around here sometimes. And you don't always think of just asking your neighbor a simple question like that. I mean, they're still cattle, just like the black ones down the road, the black cows down the road. So yeah, that's good
Right.
advice. That's good advice. Okay, so moving forward, well, to kind of come back to what you said, you said you purchased some embryos at the national sale in the past. Is where are you looking outside of like a big sale like that? Where are you looking to buy embryos? Is it just auctions? Or I mean, are you able to find it privately? Like, how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, so auctions are definitely um excuse me. It's the auctions are like the easiest place to find people who will have embryos. Um if you're looking for like show quality genetics, if you're out at these shows and there's, certain cattle that you really like and you remember their name, or you see a few out of the same dam and you're like, "Oh, I'd like to get one of theirs." Feel free to reach out to those breeders that brought them, and be like, "Hey, have you either flushed this cow's dam, or would you consider selling her to me so I can flush her?" You're gonna get a lot of no's. It's some people just don't want to flush them. Some cows just don't flush as well as others. Um, Other people just plain and simple don't want to share their genetics with other folks, because if it's the top of the line and they're doing really good with it, corner that market and make everybody buy their live cattle rather than buying their embryos. But you just got to ask around, if you're trying to go private.
Mhm.
Um, I would say the big thing too when you're getting these, make sure you're verifying whether they're conventional or sexed or IVF sexed embryos, because uh, what type they are, there is a little difference in the timing when it comes to implanting them in your recips. And if you're not sure what type you're getting and you're trying to put in, you know, a certain type with the wrong timing, your success rates are going to be significantly lower.
Okay, so that might be something. Find your facility first, and then maybe kind of pick their brain about what you should be looking for, and what program you need to start using, depending on what you're purchasing.
Hmm.
Okay. Okay. There's a lot more to it than we're going to get to tonight, but
Oh yeah.
I think this is a good solid foundation for somebody who is just thinking about getting into it. Because like we said, I mean, the way the market's going right now, it might be a really good option for some people, to go that route. Um, so, Brandon, we've got a few minutes left here. I wanted to shift gears a little bit and just ask you a question I like to ask everybody at the end of the episode. This podcast is kind of geared towards newer listeners or newer breeders. What's some advice that you would give, to somebody that's just starting out or thinking about getting into Highland cattle?
Uh, I would say don't jump in head first. I was kind of blessed when I started. I was 16. Didn't know. I clearly didn't know a thing about cattle because of my background. And fortunately, I had, like I said, the Larsons at 40 acres. I had Heather Bailey at Cobblestone that were kind of there to guide me. And I kept like, oh, I want to buy this, I want to buy this, I want to buy a bunch of cattle. And they're like, no, no, we're gonna go slow. We're gonna let you have like one or two here. But it really taught me to like kind of learn my cattle and learn how to work them, and just focus solely on the few that I had and how I wanted to try and improve them. Um, and I think that, especially new breeders that don't have a lot of cattle experience, which this breed tends to attract,
Mhm.
just go slow. You don't got to build, this huge, $1 million operation with your cattle right off the bat. Just take your time. Don't overdo it. Don't start too fast, because then you're gonna either get burned out or overwhelmed, and you're not gonna enjoy the experience. And you'll be looking for a way out within, I mean, probably 2, 3 years.
Right. Yeah, I think that's really good advice, and you're absolutely right. This breed definitely does attract, or at least recently, past several years, this breed does attract
Mhm.
a bunch of new people that have never had, livestock, large livestock. Um,
Yeah, and it might be hard, it's certainly is if you're like an adult, whereas I was a child at the time, it might be a little harder to find a mentor like that to really take you under their wing and teach you the proper ways of doing everything. But if you can, it'll be well worth your time.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, well, I want to thank you, Brandon, again for sitting down with us. I really like your story. I think coming from a background where you didn't really have any experience with cattle or ag, I think a lot of people can relate to that, and I think it's really important to show people, that you can go from not having cattle, maybe not even knowing anything about cattle, to you know, doing some pretty big things. So I hope our listeners are encouraged, and I want to thank you again for taking time out of your night to talk with us a little bit. Um, we'll wrap up here, but Brandon, if it's okay, we'll tag you here at the end of the episode. If people want to get a hold of you, or maybe if they have questions or anything like that, if they're able to reach out to you, if that's okay with you, we'll just we'll post up your Facebook contact information, social media contacts, um, and we'll go from there. Hopefully, in the future, we can talk more about this because, like I said, I feel like we laid a pretty good foundation, but we've got a lot more to discuss. Maybe we can get into some more details in the future too. Um, Listeners, if you guys have any new topics or topics you want to hear about or people you want to hear from, reach out to us. Cattlemen through the association. Our emails listed at the end of this episode as well. So please feel free to contact us, give us some feedback, ideas, contacts of people who you think should be interviewed. So thanks again, Brandon, and we'll see you next time. Okay.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you so much for having me on.